Welcome, and thanks for listening to Cherry Bekaert's Not-for-Profit podcast series. In each episode, we hear from the best in the business on the latest challenges, trends, and opportunities affecting not-for-profit organizations and educational institutions. I'm Matthew Saha, leader of Cherry Bekaert's not-for-profit industry practice. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Hello, I'm Amy Dosik, and I lead Cherry Bekaert's not-for-profit tax practice. I'm excited to be here with you today to talk about the direct pay program for government and not-for-profit entities. I have here with me our team of experts, so I'll throw it over to Martin Karamon to introduce his team.
Are we unmuted now?
We're unmuted.
Okay. Amy, thank you very much. My name, as Amy said, is Martin Karamon. I'm the head of our Tax Credits and Incentives Advisory Group here at Cherry Bekaert. Our group is made up of about 50 professionals, and we focus on everything from some of the Inflation Reduction Act benefits we're going to talk about today to things like research credit studies, to cost segregation studies, and beyond. I'm accompanied today by Tim Doran and David Mohimani from my team, who I'll allow them to introduce themselves for a moment. But one of the things that's been great with respect to what my group has been able to do is historically, over the last few years, we've worked with many not-for-profits around the Employee Retention Credit Program, and we're very excited to sort of continue those relationships that we had and develop more with respect to some of the direct pay benefits. But with that said, Tim and David, why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah, thank you, Marty and Amy. Tim Doran, I'm a director here in our energy credit practice, working with Marty and Amy and David. My background, I've been here for a little over half a year. My background actually was counsel for a large utility and renewable energy developer. And this was prior to the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, the Inflation Reduction Act opened up a lot of new doors to a lot of new people to be able to take advantage of these credits, to look to go into clean energy. And I'm excited to be here today to talk to some of them about those.
And I'm David Mohimani. I'm a manager on our tax credit group. My background, I spent about 7 years in the renewable energy tax credit space, working on the financial modeling associated with these credits. And I've been with Cherry Bekaert about 9 months now, working on all things Inflation Reduction Act.
Great. Well, thanks to everybody for those introductions. Can we start off by talking a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act and what the new direct pay program is for government and not-for-profit entities?
That's great, Amy. To kind of tag off of my background, prior to the Inflation Reduction Act, there were these tax credits out there for investing in things like solar energy and wind energy. But the way it was structured, they were available to large institutional players like utilities, like large developers. The Inflation Reduction Act that came out in 2022 made these types of credits available to a lot more people. And one of the really unique things, it's actually unique not just in the space of the energy credits, but it's unique in federal tax generally, is this new concept where not-for-profit, tax-exempt organizations, even governmental organizations who don't really operate much in the federal tax realm can avail themselves of these credits and get a payment for their activities in this space.
So, Tim, can you tell us who's eligible to receive these credits?
Yeah, that's also a great question. I mean, on its face, it seems pretty simple, but we've even this space, and it's a great time to talk about that too. Like, this space is evolving very quickly. We're constantly getting new guidance from the IRS, and we're growing along with that guidance. When Congress passed the law, they listed out 5 or 6 different categories of people who are eligible for direct pay. That included tax-exempt organizations, states, local governments, Indian tribal governments, agencies of those different state and local government, and then a couple specifically enumerated organizations. What happened was the IRS provided additional guidance, as they normally do in the form of regulations. We received proposed regulations a few months ago that told us that 501A organizations are what the IRS considered to be those tax-exempt organizations that fall within the statute. But the good news is that we have final regulations that just came out a few days ago that tell us that it's actually 501, 530, and even 528 tax-exempt organizations which now qualify. So it's really almost any tax-exempt organization which is qualified under the federal code Unfortunately, if it's just a state specific and not a federal qualified entity, you might not qualify, and we'd have to get technical. But generally speaking, tax exempt organizations, governments, the whole works.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit more about how organizations apply for the credit? What's the process?
Yeah, so I think step one is identifying and pursuing a qualifying activity. There are a lot of different energy and energy efficient credits that fall within the umbrella of the Inflation Reduction Act, and almost all of them qualify, provided you're one of those qualifying entities, those eligible entities we just talked about. So there are credits for clean energy vehicles. There are credits for EV car chargers. The big ones are the credits for solar energy, battery energy storage, geothermal. There's a whole list of different technologies that qualify. Once you've identified an investment or a technology that you want to deploy, you then determine your tax year. And that can be a little bit different, especially for, as you know, Amy, for some of these tax-exempt organizations that don't often think in terms of federal tax years. But you determine your tax year so you can know when you're going to need to file your form. You make sure you satisfy your eligibility requirements. There are a bunch of different documentation requirements that are in the code. There are different enhancements to these credits that you need to make sure you're documenting. And then you go and you have all of that and you've placed your technology into service and you complete a pre-filing registration. This is also a new concept with the IRS. So they have a website where you go in and you enter in your information, you set up an account, and it's going to ask you questions. And some of them are specifically related to the credit and the technology that you're looking into. And it will eventually give you a registration number. You're going to need that registration number because the next step is filing a timely filed return with the appropriate forms, and then you put that registration number into those forms in order to elect to go after these credits. Now, what's interesting about this too is we've learned that the IRS has stated that they're going to attempt to make payment once you've filed all those forms and gotten your registration number and purchased your property, placed it in service within 45 days. It remains to be seen, I think, whether or not they're able to continue to comply with that. But that's basically the process.
Well, that's really exciting. Tim, can you talk a little bit about what the benefits are of direct pay? How much can organizations expect to receive in credits, depending on what their projects are in terms of percentages?
Yes, it varies across the board based on what types of technology you're going after. But I think the baseline amount, provided you meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements during the development of whatever you're putting into service, for example, let's say solar panels, you're eligible for a 30% credit on up to 40, 50% plus, depending on if you meet other requirements of your investment. So if you were going to go and put a $100,000 solar panel system on your roof, you could potentially be seeing $30,000 to $50,000 back in the form of a tax credit that is then paid to you from the U.S. Treasury, which is a pretty powerful incentive.
That's really exciting. Can you talk a bit about your work in helping clients apply for and monetize these credits?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we can get involved at the start. Part of this is qualifying what you're doing. When we talked about the process for going after these things, the first step was identifying and pursuing a qualifying activity. So our team understands the technical nature of a lot of these technologies and can help understand, whether or not the particular technology is going to qualify. We can model out what the benefit will be like, when you're going to see the monetization of that benefit, what the net present value might be. And then the big, kind of meat and potatoes of these projects is the documentation exercise. And that's where I think we bring a lot of technical expertise to the table, where we can make sure that all of the various things that the IRS is going to want to see are put together and in place and appropriate. And you're claiming a credit that you are eligible and qualified to claim in the right amount.
Marty, did you have anything you wanted to add about how Cherry Bekaert is working on these projects with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to make the process as easy as possible for our clients. And so that involves everything from taking their calls about the program to reaching out affirmatively. What our preferred methodology really is to begin with maybe a half an hour discussion with our clients and just talk about what projects they have been involved with over the past year and maybe what they see going on for the future. what we have found is that many of our clients are involved in projects that they didn't even know were credit eligible. And so it wasn't necessarily this program incentivizing them to do it, but they kind of fell into it accidentally. And going forward, they then can plan out to do more of these projects because it is so economically beneficial to them. And so the process really is just taking the time to sit down with each of our clients and talking about what they're doing. And then we'll provide an information request to them that will involve both descriptions of the projects that they're undertaking, but also some of the financials that they have and the payments they're making for them. So that can go to what Tim talked about, which is documenting the technology that they're placing into service or plan to, but also adequately calculating the correct costs that go into the credit and letting them know what that credit is, and then ultimately helping them apply through the portal for the direct payment. But it's really been and is beginning to be a wonderful opportunity for my group and for you, Amy, as well, to talk to clients about something that has immediate monetary benefit to them.
Yeah, for many of our clients who aren't used to being federal taxpayers, particularly our state and local governmental entities, this is a rare opportunity to participate in a tax credit program. And so we're excited for what this means for state colleges and universities, governmental entities, in terms of the ability of these entities to invest in clean energy over the next several years. So one final question for the team. If the listeners of this podcast remember only one thing, what do you want their big takeaway to be?
My perspective, it would be don't dismiss out of hand any particular project. Have the conversation with us or someone like us so that you can do that investigation, because you need to record this project on the appropriate tax return that you will file in order to get that benefit. So you don't want to miss that. So I would just say, don't dismiss anything out of hand. Just have a conversation.
Yeah, and to layer on to what Marty said, we see a lot of folks that are already doing some of these activities, and it brings joy to us to be able to say, hey, guess what? There's a lot of benefit and incentive that's coming your way that you didn't even know you were a part of. But to the extent that you're not, but maybe you've been thinking about it, or maybe you weren't thinking about it, and now you just heard this podcast and you are, there's never been a better time to get involved with clean and efficient energy than right now.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. I'm excited to have the conversation about this opportunity for direct pay. If you want more information about direct pay or want to get in contact with our Cherry Bekaert team for a complimentary scoping discussion and exercise, you can reach me at amy.dosik@cbh.com. That's amy.dosik@cbh.com.
Thank you for leading this endeavor for the firm and for working with us on this. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone, and I hope you'll join us next time.
This is Matthew again. I hope you enjoyed this episode and look forward to our next one. Don't forget to subscribe.